Welcome back, everyone. Um, I have Mike here and uh, sorry, let me do that again. Um, I have Mike here today, and we are going to be talking about problematic themes and problematic players as well. But before we get to that, how are you doing today, Mike?
Doing all right. It's been a week, to say the very least, dealing with various levels of bureaucracy. So that's fun. Other than that, got some exciting stuff on the horizon. Don't think I can talk about it just yet as of this recording. But by the next recording, I'll be able to talk about it a lot more. So good stuff coming. Just can't say what yet.
Nice, nice. That is awesome to hear. Um, so I think the best place to start with this is kind of backwards from how I referred to it, and I would like to tackle the topic of problematic players first. As I think that one is it's fairly relevant, and it's something that if you look at the internet is a pretty big issue, depending on where you look.
Mhm.
Um, and it does happen, but there are ways that we can avoid, you know, any issues from it, because there might not actually be problematic, just
Misunderstanding, perhaps.
yeah, like they may not understand what's going on, but on the other hand, that it's going to come down to their actions as well. Because somebody who is essentially looking to play an SA simulator,
Yeah.
yeah, is not gonna be just misunderstanding or misunderstood. They're just kind of a shitty person.
Hmm.
Just gonna um be kind of direct about that. But it's working with them to figure out if that is the case. If they are actually a problematic player. Um, so as far as problem players, have you had any issues yourself on either side of the GM screen?
I've had a few problem players. One of them, again, I'm not going to out this person, and I kind of touched upon it last time. It was kind of like this person is on the spectrum, and they had a meltdown, and that's the term that someone else I know who works in the field said. And at the time I spoke with the person's guardian, said, hey, we've had a disagreement, let's all break for 10 minutes, and had a discussion. And that's not the fault of the player necessarily, because that's sort of like when a ruling doesn't go your way, people get upset, and that's just kind of the way it is. That was an unfortunate, and I wouldn't even so much call this person a problem player. It was like, it's D&D, you don't always win, right? And that was something I was able to de-escalate fairly quickly just by having a rational conversation, using this person's guardian as sort of an intermediary, and just explaining cool and calmly, not being aggressive with it. And it was handled fairly well. Um, and it was one of the first times I'd ever been a front-facing dungeon master in a public setting that I was being compensated for. So that one worked out fairly okay, and it cemented my reputation around town as sort of like, yeah, that's Mike. He's pretty reasonable. If you have a problem, he'll work it out with you. The other time, I was part of a problem player group, and there was a couple of us playing, and this guy and their partner had gone off and done cowboy shit, so to speak. So the rest of us were sitting around the table with nothing to do for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It didn't go so well for them. They basically got their asses kicked. My DM, Peter, he wasn't gonna play a fool, and he told these two people like, hey, my enemies are going to be tactical, they're going to be smart. If you do something stupid, I am going to punish you for it. And now it wasn't like, you've done dumb, I'm going to kick your ass. And it was like, no, it was constantly, are you sure? And the rest of us in the group were saying to these two individuals like, hey, tactically this doesn't make a lot of sense. We're a military unit, we have to behave like that. We can't afford to split up right now. We don't have the resources should something go wrong. Like, again, I talk with a lot of military people. I have friends that are military, and I'm thinking, all right, I got a pretty good idea. Plus, I like to read a lot of history books. So they went off on their own. They didn't want to listen to me. Like, okay, fine. So that happened. The next session we spent rescuing them, and this person came off as extremely aggressive to me and my game master. And I was, I'm a pretty agreeable person. I'm like, hey man, like, are you doing okay? What's wrong? And this person came at me very hard saying I was their problem. This was all my fault that all this happened. I'm thinking, okay, what? And eventually it got into a screaming match between the dungeon master and them. And I'm trying to be apologetic. I mean, I'm not saying I was all Little Mary Sunshine, but I was like, whoa, what's kind of going on here? So I'm trying to backpedal and try and de-escalate this as fast as I can. Not working. So my game master had contacted me privately on the phone, and we actually met up in person that afternoon. And he's like, hey man, I don't know whether I want to continue to DM for this group anymore. I'm like, whoa. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's talk. So we had a conversation about this person. It turns out the individual that had the issue with me and my game master was having some very large personal problems. And my DM had a conversation with this person, and it did not go well. And he's like, Mike, I don't know what to do. Like, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, we're going to have to face the fact we could lose the group over this, because this person was connected to some other people in our group, and we could have lost 3/4 of our group in one fell swoop. So my game master, Peter, was like, okay, I'm going to write them an exit interview. Okay, we're going to say, hey, we know you're going through some stuff right now. It seems like you're using this game as therapy, and maybe it's becoming a little too real for you, which this person definitely was. And he's like, this isn't the game for you. I'm not mad at you, but I'm going to politely ask you to leave. Everybody's here for a good time. Nobody wants hard feelings. And I had even offered to leave the group on my own, because I didn't want, like, if we were going to lose the entire group, I'm like, fine, I'll leave so everybody can still have fun. And my game master's like, no, you're not doing this. You didn't do this. This is not your fault. And the other two players came on to the call that night, got really aggressive. To my memory, I could very well be remembering this wrong, but I remember eventually, I'm like, hey guys, I remember saying to them, like, hey, I don't wish you any ill will. Hopefully you're doing okay. Good luck, good journey, and good fortune to you. And that's the last I ever heard from them. That was over a year and a half ago. They still play with some of my other friends. Like, fortunately, our group didn't break up. Out of the 4 that came over, we only lost those 2. And the group that we're all part of, we've been together for over a year and a half strong now. That's probably the most complicated I've ever seen a situation get. In terms of problem players, I've run into a type of player that I don't like. And I wouldn't necessarily call them a problem, but I can see it becoming a problem. And then I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on this. Power players. As a DM, I've got a real problem with that. Now, min-maxing your shit, I get it. Everybody wants to slay the orc. Everybody wants to kill the dragon. I get that. But I remember having a very interesting conversation with a friend of mine, and he was upset that he didn't get anything above like a 14 when we were rolling characters. And because I challenged him, like, you're going to roll 3d6. If you get something, if you get something below a 10, I'm not going to make you keep it. But I invite you to try it and see what happens. He's like, but I'm not going to get any 18s. I'm like, and not everybody's going to be Superman or Goku. You're just going to have to accept that. And eventually he made a character, I'm pretty sure that this was D&D or maybe it was Pathfinder. It was one or the other. And eventually he had a good time with it because a good friend of mine had given me some really good advice. And it was like, your flaws are what make your character interesting. And by nerfing the power player out of the gate, I wasn't trying to cut them off at the knees. I just wasn't going to have these min-maxy characters at my table because part of a problem player is it has to be fun for the player and it has to be fun for the DM. And I was not having fun thinking, well, every encounter I make, you're just going to clown because I've been with this player before. And I'd listened to this person talk about, I have an 18 strength, I have an 18 dexterity, I have a maxed out constitution score, and if I use these magic items in these orders, and yes, it is fun to optimize your builds, and that's cool and everything. But if you go into every battle expecting to be the Terminator, what's the challenge if you know you can't lose? Right? There's no stakes at it. So that's one type of person I've run into is power players. The other problem player that I'll throw it to you is I I don't want to use the word cheater, but maybe people that are not remembering to do things on their sheet, like remember to use your spell slots, remember to make sure all your abilities are checked off. I don't expect you to know the monk front side to back if this is your first time playing it, but if this is like your fifth or sixth time, especially if you're using a digital tool like D&D Beyond where it spells everything out. If I'm having to remind you to use your key points each and every single turn, and if I think you're not, I'll always give you a polite warning. Everybody gets 3 strikes. On strike 3, the Tarask is coming out or something. And I don't like it because this is a bad DM habit. When it becomes me versus you, that's not fun. When it becomes adversarial, that's where problems really start, I think. And I don't like being on that side of the table because I'm not there to harsh anybody's buzz. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. But if you're coming to my table and you're cheating and you're coming here to stomp me in the face, that's not fun for me. So those are some of my experiences I've had. What about you?
Um, I definitely agree vis-a-vis with when it comes to cheating. Yeah, that's just there's no call for it. It's like a collaborative experience. Like, nah, I'm even on the fence about DMs, like GMs and storytellers fudging their dice rolls. There's kind of a time for it, in my opinion, but it's very edge case scenarios. Um, but with my experience in regards to say problematic players. Um, the worst one that comes to mind, like I can't even remember this person's name in order to out them, and I don't think they pay attention to my content anyway. Um, but it was a few years ago, and it was a local game in where I'm living now, and the game was actually hosted at this player's house. So
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of an issue right there. Um, but before the session, like when it all kind of came to a head, uh, I can't even remember really what the situation was, but we had like a boss fight coming up, and one of the other players had like a magic item that'd be perfect to use in this situation. It was one of those horns that lets you summon a bunch of fucking knights or whatever.
Oh, it's like a barbarian item, right? It's like a horde horn or some shit like that.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like barbarians specifically, but yeah, it was like it was a horn. You blow on the horn, it summons much Greedleys, and like we're like, okay, this would be perfect for this situation. The one dude had it, and we're like, yeah, it'd be perfect because in the planning stages before the session, we're like, yeah, it'd be perfect if you use that right, like when we're trying to do the thing, and kind of left it at that, and we moved forward a little bit. Um, and I don't know what set the guy off during session, but something clearly did.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting up to where the boss fight's gonna happen. You know, 3/4 of the way through session, and all of a sudden we're doing prep. I'm like, "Oh, hey, you gonna blow? You gonna blow the horn?" Dude picks up his character sheet, tosses it in front of me. He's like, "You're gonna play my damn character for me too?" I'm like,
The fuck?
"Excuse me?" At that point, quite a few things raced through my head. Um, Maybe throw the character sheet back at him and tell him to go fuck himself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, it's not the appropriate time for that. Plus, this guy was bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Self preservation, man. Um, but no, I ended up at that time basically going. But like, I think I tried to explain myself. Actually, no, I didn't. I just like at that point look at the GM. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm out of here. I'm not gonna deal with this, and started to walk out. Thankfully, they didn't. They didn't let me do that. They talked me into just like going outside, cooling off, having a smoke, and coming back in. Um, but yeah, it was an issue, and part of the issue was that this player, and I think the main reason why they wanted to play in their home, um, drank.
Oh.
I he, he he was usually drunk by the end of session. Um, and yeah, it was an issue, and there was also like a couple of situations where we heard him like arguing with his wife in the background, from the other room, which is always awkward. Like it's always an awkward situation.
Yeah, because there's like a certain level of decorum you should be maintaining when you have guests in your home. Like, I mean, yeah, like me and my wife, we'll have like a little squabble, but it's nothing that would be considered serious. Like, we kind of joke around in our house. We call it "bought the wrong mustard," which is a referencing a argument I heard my grandparents have, and they got into it, and we're like, "This is stupid. Look at what we're arguing about." But yeah, if you're having a major disagreement and your friends are over, maybe it's time to like, "Hey guys, we're not doing so good. Can we pick this up next week and just get people to gently excuse themselves?" But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a little hard to come back to the table after you've been screaming at your partner. You're like, "All right, let's roll some dice." Like, are you sure I'm not comfortable anymore?
yeah. Um, Needless to say that that campaign didn't last much longer after that. It was unfortunate too, because like that was fun. It was like a high level. It was the high level campaign that I'd referenced a couple of times already, and like I got
Hmm.
to play a super high level sorcerer that had wish and could do interesting broken things and was creating essentially an army of skeletons and shambling mounds and various other things. Yeah, it was a good time.
I
Uh
mean, one thing I think a lot of people, this is something I'm seeing practice more and more, and I think it's really good, is the session zero, especially if you're playing with a new group of people, or even if it's your friends, kind of laying out like, oh, here are my expectations, especially if you're the GM, but even if you're the player, like, what can we expect from this? What are the rules? What's the decorum? Like, I know with like me and my group with like um Pete, Sam, and Tom, and my friend Nick, we all had the conversation like, okay, we're doing dark fantasy, so you're gonna run into some dark shit. If there's anything that needs to be talked about, you can let me know. We can avoid this. Don't go anything too weird with like sexual stuff. Like, you can have romance in my games, but we're all dudes here, so we're not going to romance it out. Again, to quote Seinfeld, not that there's anything wrong with that. We're like, you can have these moments, and if you want them to be major parts of your character, let me know. And we ran into a session this week where my group, we'd run into a group of cultists that had kidnapped a bunch of kids. And we're thinking, well, shit, what are we going to do? We got to save these kids. And the kids start attacking us. And we're like, oh, we can't hit them, but we're dealing subdue damage to try to knock them out, right? And our DM reveals the kids are already dead. Like, they're possessed. Like, they're gone. Like, they've been dead and something is reanimating the bodies. And we're all like, oh. But my DM had a conversation with the one guy in my group, my friend Sam, who might have had an issue with these. Like, me as the player, I don't have a problem with that. Me as the character would be, I'm out of here. But let's kind of workshop this. And it all kind of worked out in the end, because we're like, okay, first off, we know that's not cool, because some of the people in my group actually have kids, and it's kind of a touchy subject.
yeah.
And it worked out okay in the end. And I kind of gave the analogy of like, it's like in Dawn of the Dead. They're like, what do you mean? Well, in Dawn of the Dead, when Peter goes to the airport, he runs into zombie kids. You're just going to have to realize occasionally bad things happen to everybody, but we don't have to dwell on it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that kind of worked out. And even with like a session zero, as long as you have an open dialogue with your DM, I find that's a really good thing. And even if you're going to like a friendly local game store and you're playing with complete strangers, if your DM is not holding a session zero, that's kind of a red flag for me, because you don't know what that DM's going to do. Like, again, are you going to run into weird themes? Are going to be stuff you don't want to touch? Again, you've talked about a SA simulators. They're going to be slaveries. They're going to be racism. Is there going to be abuse, animals? Like there's so many different topics you can touch upon here. And with channels like, I think it's called Crit Crab or D&D Doge, you hear about these horror stories of these people bringing pretty weird shit to the table. And you have to wonder, like, how did it get this far? But, you hope the people you're going to spend a few hours with are people you'd want to spend some time with outside of rolling dice with, right? Like, everybody I play with, yeah, we'd all be buddies in real life, and we are for the most part. Like, one of our guys lives in the States, in the South, so we don't get a chance to see them very often. But still, it's like, you have to have that certain level of comfort, and you have to be willing to express a certain side of yourself, and that means expressing a certain side of vulnerability. And yeah, not everyone's gonna do that from the hop. Like, I'm not expecting everyone to have the same level of like, your critical role, your Titan's Graves, or whatever in the first session, but you have to have those conversations to sort of get the vibes down, to get the vibe check. Does the game pass the smell test? And there's nothing wrong with voicing your opinion, saying, hey, for example, let's kind of use my game. If I said, hey, I'm cool with everything, but can we not do romance? Okay, cool. Odds are your DM will just say, okay, fine. And it's such a small thing. And maybe with problem players too, this could be something that a DM might have to keep their eye on too, is when players bring stuff to your table. Like, let's say they include SA as part of their background, like say, oh, I was the daughter of a slave and I was SA and now I seek revenge. Okay. Um, cool story. Don't know if I feel comfortable running that because you have to be able to run your, like as you and I discussed a couple weeks ago, talking about backgrounds and making your players more alive. Yeah, terrible things happen in the real world. I don't necessarily want to deal with that in my fantasy, and I don't know whether that's me putting on the blinders. I mean, there's a
Well,
very famous YouTube video where people talk about the nature of good and evil, and I'll explain this in like 30 seconds really quick because I think this could set up a situation. Like you, obviously, Damien, you and I have been around long enough. We've heard the alignment argument,
mhm.
right? And it boils down to the classic example I've heard is orcs. In certain D&D settings, they are irredeemably evil. That's who they are. There is no going back or whatever. Later editions of D&D have since changed this to where it's more morally gray or whatever, right? But if you run into an orc encampment, you kill all the males, you kill the chieftain, and all that's left is the women and children. What do you do? Do you leave them there knowing that they will seek revenge on you, or you've killed everybody and there's orc babies left? What do? You know they're going to grow up to be evil. What do you do? That I have heard of groups splitting up over a hell of a lot less.
That is actually an interesting moral simulator for a just a game in and of itself. That's kind of messed up.
Well, yeah, because like morality, like when you play these games, like we all come together to have these collaborative and important stories. We all want to make a statement. And some people will say, well, don't bring politics into my games. And to that, I would say, do you like Final Fantasy VII? Well, yes, I do. You are a strange group of people, a group of SJWs for all intents and purposes, with a furry who dress in drag fighting a fascist corporation.
Yeah.
Is that what you signed up for? Well, yeah, that's awesome. I give you what's happening right now. Without getting too deep into the weeds, are you on Shinra's side or are you with Avalanche? It's not a hard choice.
Yeah,
So
exactly. But
and
yeah, like with some of the things that you've mentioned, it kind of illuminates the need for safety tools like
mhm,
lines and veil sheets. Um, you mentioned like essentially, you know, the one situation like basically had to go in and confronted by kids that were already dead.
mhm,
On most of mine, I usually put violence towards kids type deal. Um,
mhm,
even that situation, like if I was playing in a game, I put violence towards kids on the nope, that's the line. No, nothing about that. And they're like, hey, I have a scene that I want to do. This is the situation. I might be amenable to that, understanding what the idea behind it is.
yeah,
You know
because
what I
your
mean?
intent is not the violence; it's to show the horror, presumably, of what this is. Because storytelling, if anything, is it's exploring morality, it's exploring difficult topics. And considering we lived in a highly politicized time, to say the very least, of
Yeah.
what's currently happening in the world, morality plays, this is a chance for us to work those things out. And, all of us want to fight the bad guy, all of us want to punch the proverbial Nazi. But there's also gray lines in there too. Like you hear stories about people who worked under the bad guys and left, right? There's always those stories to be told, those redeemable characters from terrible circumstances. And a lot of this, like, I'm really glad you mentioned safety tools. When I used to do a lot of my games in person, when I would do my session zero and do my prep talk before we would ever start rolling dice, the rule I was given by my friend Justin, who used to run Terrible Warriors, which I forgot to mention, that website is now offline. We are working on getting that back up, maybe under a different website to restore those old episodes, so maybe they're still out there. I don't know. But point of the matter is, he taught me the X. And the X is if there's anything in your game you are uncomfortable with and you don't want to disrupt the vibe of the table, you cross your hands like you were throwing up a penalty in hockey. Like if you're doing the call for interference, you'd be like, okay, don't like this. Can we skip it? Or that's the cue, like, hey, take 5. And that I think is a really good safety tool. I've seen people have consent sheets. Like my buddy Sam has one ready for a Dragonlance game we're going to play in. And he's like, hey, I'm really big on consent. I'm really big on safety tools. Can you guys fill this out? And important safety tip, make sure your stuff is accessible. Like I'm not saying it has to be a form fillable PDF and Braille, but what I am saying is make sure that it can be easily understood and easily filled out. So it makes your job and his job easier to understand.
Yeah.
But having that conversation about what is off limits, because for example, you could go really deep into, like, everybody uses the example of SA. It's just, it is one of those horrible things that happens.
Yeah.
But you could go into slavery. For example, the D&D setting, Dark Sun has that baked right into its setting. So is that something you'd ever see Wizards bring back? Maybe, maybe not. I know in their most recent Unearthed Arcana, they brought back one of those classes. But what I'm saying is, you look at stuff like slavery, you look at maybe even arranged marriages, because I know, hell, even certain terms. I know in D&D, again, to go back to this, when the first edition of Curse of Strahd came out for 2014, they had to remove certain words because they referred to the Vistani as something that could be considered a slur. I think it was something like gypsy or Romani or something like that. Again, I'm not sure of the vernacular, so obviously you don't know I mean this in malice. But when they reprinted it in the big Strahd coffin, they changed it so it was now more politically correct. And again, I know there's going to be somebody out there saying not everything's meant to be politically correct. Yeah, I hear you, but if you're pissing people off, you're probably not having a good time to begin with. Because again, stories are inherently, they're supposed to say something. They're like, if you want to play a murder simulator, go load up Skyrim.
I've actually
But
been
if you
playing
want
a
to
lot of
have it,
that recently.
yeah, and it's a fun time. But when you become murder hobo, the guards of Whiterun are going to find you.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like you have to have these conversations with people because, again, not everybody at your table is going to be the T-800 just walking through the police station mowing people down. Murder hobo should have consequences. And you can even use some of these safety tools to politely poke people. Like one example I've heard people, and even I've done this, when my group just tries to pull the murder hobo thing. Okay, cool. You do as such. About a week later, there's a bounty hunter looking for you. Or that person you killed and stole their coin purse, they had a family and they're looking for you. And they've got more money than you probably knew about. So there's ways to politely punish people and still not interrupt the flow of your game. But as you and I have both know, sometimes you just can't. And I think this is an interesting conversation. I'd love to know how you would handle this. Like with me and Peter in our situation, we had a long email written up and we had an exit interview. How would you deal with a problem player who refuses, I don't want to say refuses to see reason, but doesn't recognize that they're the problem? Do you think there's a way to salvage that situation, or is it easier just to rip off the Band-Aid to save the rest of everybody else? Or do you think it's worth working out if you can?
See, if it's gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, the problem player does not see that they are the problem, like there's at that point it's irreconcilable, and yeah, you have to be like, you know what, this is not the table for you, my guy. Um, all the best in your gaming from here, but no, that's part of the thing is if you have a player, and that's part of like where I draw the line for where a problem player um lies. If if a player is doing something and it's making everybody else uncomfortable, and you've gone to them already and been like, "Hey, can you knock this off? Like, this isn't okay. People aren't okay with this. Please and thank you." Um, and they keep doing it, then yeah, they're not doing it because they don't know at that point. They're doing it because they want to.
Mhm.
Um, and that's where I think the line has to be drawn. It's like, no, if you're going to continue to be problematic, you're going to continue to bring these things into the table, or continue with these specific actions, we're done.
Yeah, like
Um,
when you're being willfully antagonistic. Yeah, and it sucks to think that a game of pretend can cost friendships, but that's something where they're not respecting you and maybe not respecting those around you. Now, I'm a diplomat at heart. I always like to give everybody at least one chance to explain themselves because, hey, everybody has a bad day. But if you're coming to the table as you've described with irreconcilable differences, and if you're being a shit, like, sorry, dude, it's time for you to go. And it sucks to have people escorted out of your life because they couldn't respect you in a game where we're all fighting fairies and stuff or whatever. It's hard. Like, now here's an interesting question for you because you've probably played more games than me in other systems. Do you find there's a game where you see more problems come out? For example, you and I have both played a lot of World of Darkness, and you know that attracts a certain type of player. And I'm not painting the entire community with one wide brush, but it tends to lend to darker themes. Do you think you see more coming out of games like that are horror based, like your Monster of the Week, your Call of Cthulhu's, your Delta Greens, your whatever? Do you find a certain game lends more to finding problem players are attracted more to it?
Honestly, in my experience with various games, both with myself and uh, media online, D&D,
Yeah,
it's
it is the most popular for a reason, I guess.
um it fifth edition, for all of my opinions about it, is fairly accessible.
Hmm.
Insofar that you can go into a game store anywhere in North America and they will have a starter set that you can buy.
Hmm.
Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they have the market saturated, and it's great for them. You know,
Hmm.
although it doesn't leave much room for other arguably better games to come in, but that is a different conversation.
Yeah, exactly. That's a conversation for a different day.
But yeah, I think I have personally seen it more as well in D&D. Um and like, one of the things you mentioned is players being antagonistic. I don't always think it has to be antagonistic.
Hmm.
Um like, somebody who drinks at the table, which I'm just going to put a disclaimer here, I don't mind. I have no issue with, but goes too far with it.
Yeah, because like there has to be a base level of respect, and you also want to respect your game master too. Because like if you're trying to tell a really compelling story, and if you can't get up without stumbling, maybe it's time to call it for the night.
Like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, and I think, at least in my experience, the probably at least 30% of the issues that I've seen with problem players, and one problem GM was because of drinking.
The problem I've run into, it's rules. And what I mean by that is they don't like the result of a ruling, or they are not playing in good faith. And I don't like to ban a lot of stuff at my table if I can, or if I do have it banned, there's there maybe bans too strong a word. Restricted. So for example, one of the things I've copied from my friend Peter is he has a really extensive list of, okay, if you're a cleric, yes, you can get these spells, but certain spells are listed as legendary, which means you can have up to 3 of them by level 20, but you can't gain all like wish, resurrection, and I don't know, true polymorph, right? Stuff that's literally game shattering. Or if you do have them, there's a thing like, okay, if you cast resurrection, you come back a little bit sick and you will take a couple days to get your head back on straight. You're not just gonna pop up and be back in the fight. I'm like, all right, that's interesting. I like that. But I've seen people stack the deck where they have these ridiculous combos, and I love this guy to death. I fucking do. Do not get me wrong. I'm not talking shit about this guy. But D&D Shorts has a series where it's called Weird Things You Can Do in D&D. Long story short, it's war crimes in about less than a minute. And some of those combos are pretty friggin' ridiculous. And I've been guilty of using them, but I also understand doing that's going to piss people off. And if you're not taking the rules in good faith, yeah, it's fun to Eldritch Blast a guy 30 feet up in the air and he lands prone and he can't get up. Everybody in your group can hammer on him and wail on him for like however much damage or whatever. You have to learn when there's a time and place for your shenanigans. And sometimes when you clamp down on people's combos, people get mad. Like I've done this to people. Like I've had the race at my table I'm learning to really freaking hate right now is Shardar Kai. In fact, I'm very heavily considering restricting them the next game just because of their stupid abilities, and it changes how my combats play out. Now, is that a problem as me as a GM? Yeah, maybe. And I'm willing to accept that. But if you're bringing so many shenanigans to the game, like there are combos you can do where you are landing 8, 9, 10 attacks at level 5 in D&D. Again, and that's rules as written, but that's also taking advantage of so many different properties. And okay, if that's cool, like once, maybe twice, like one combo. Actually, I can think of something, and this caused a very big argument in our group. Damien, have you ever heard of the bag of holding trick?
So you'd mentioned this before,
Yeah.
and yeah, like that's actually been around since like the early days of D&D. Though originally what it was putting either a bag of holding, and it was kind of both of these, but you could do either of them.
Mm-hmm.
Putting a bag of holding inside of a portable hole, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And essentially it ends everything in your immediate vicinity. There is out there an image.
And there's no saving throw.
Yeah, no, it happens. Everything in, I think it's like a 30-foot range is just sucked into the astral plane. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You are done. But yeah, like there's floating around the internet. There's an image of like an arrow with like a bag of holding and a portable hole that's essentially a portable war crimes weapon. But yeah, like that's been around for a while. Rarely that you see people attempt to use it though.
I've seen one, and this is another one that I saw, I think via D&D Shorts. Maybe it was Dungeon Dudes. I don't think it was them though. But the combo went, if you take the spell Catapult, it specifically mentions a weight limit, like 5 pounds or something, right? So they're like, okay, So get a bunch of flasks of alchemist fire. Okay. Get a net. Okay. Load all those things of alchemist fire into the net. Use the catapult spell to launch said net. Now you're dealing, I think it's like 3d6 force damage plus however many alchemist fire you launch. Again, that is clever
Mm-hmm.
once, maybe twice. That's something you could break out once, maybe every couple sessions. But if you're doing it consistently, that's annoying. And again, I feel like that's taking advantage of rules as written, but I get it. Like, and again, we don't want to ruin people's fun in games, but one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard, and I'm 99% sure this was Dungeon Dudes, D&D is not a physics simulator. Like, you look at all the ridiculous things you can do, and again, you could point this out to like other games. Like, it's not just exclusive to D&D, and I know that's the example we keep kind of going with. But like Shadowrun, for example, in one of the early editions, they had a gun. I wish I could remember which one it was, but it dealt like 10s damage, so 10 serious damage. That is not fucking nothing, and
Oh.
it had a ridiculously high concealability rating. So in theory, you could have one of these things strapped under your arm or in your coat, and if someone came near you, 10s damage. So they would have to soak that damage to get. They have to roll a tens, which means they have to roll 6 plus 4 more on the dice. Two for every 2 successes, you could knock it down from serious to medium to light to stun to nothing. But 10s is seriously, you're almost dead at that point. If someone's not wearing armor, they are fucked.
Yeah, not
And
having a good day at that point.
yeah, and it's weird because again, when you take advantage of the rules, you are a problem player. Again, you're allowed to do stuff that is clever, but when you are purposely pissing people off, because I know my one friend Nick, he didn't like this. I was playing a monk and I had the feat Crusher. And I was playing Way of the Open Hand, I want to say. And one of my special effects with my feet was I can push an opponent anywhere 10 feet in like any direction. And I looked at my DM, any direction? Any direction. Fine. Marvel versus Capcom. And I air juggled them. And they're like, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah. And I can do that every single turn. And Nick was not having a good time with me. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stop doing that because I can see I'm making you mad.
Well, and like that's the thing, and uh, taking advantage of the mechanics and the rules is one thing. I 100% encourage that, but taking advantage of the mechanics to the detriment of everyone else,
Yeah.
that's where it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Like hell, it with the whole like taking advantage mechanics thing at the beginning of any personal game that I've played, I to my players, be it if it's in person or on via Discord, if I'm running the game, if you find a mechanic that you know if you want to min max, if you want to take advantage of like weird mechanics combinations, cool. Just keep in mind, I can do the same thing.
Yep. And that has come back to bite us in the ass in our game. I can tell you that. Like, it's like you don't want to take so much advantage where you ruin everybody's fun because you're right. Eventually, your DM's going to think, hey, wait, I can do the same thing back. And that's not fun either. Like a lot of problem players and a lot of problem DMs, it comes down to etiquette. There's rules, or as my one friend has said, the code. And the code is like, I'm going to respect you. You're going to respect me. We're going to have a good time. We're all here in our adulthood playing make believe, but let's have a good time and do it.
Yeah.
Like with the group I'm currently with now, like I said, we've been together for over a year and a half, getting on 2 years in January. This is the group where I felt the most respected. the group that I feel that has the most open communication. Now it's funny. We were gonna have a conversation with our DM Peter saying, "Hey man, we're getting a little tired of the Underdark. Can we see the sun?" But recently, the campaign started to pick up steam. And we're like, you know what? Maybe we don't need to have that conversation because we our DM had introduced this really weird mechanic for this plot hook that they were doing, and we had a very long conversation. And my DM got really upset because he didn't take the. I don't know whether we didn't articulate it well or they were having a bad day, but they're like, well, then I don't know if I want to do this. We're like, no, 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 no. Let's give it a whirl. Let's see how it works over a session. We want to try it. We want you to have fun too. Let's give it a whirl. And surprisingly, it worked out pretty well for us. Um, and that's one of the things too. I find both sides have to be open to listening.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all adults, presumably. Um, I'm not saying that to be facetious. It's like the best way you'll get through life, in my opinion, is to have an open ear, an open heart, and be willing to listen, not always compromise. And that's going to sound weird to what I say next. Some things you can't compromise on. Like, I'd rather not deal with SA.
Meh.
That's fair. I don't want that to happen. I'm not going to compromise on that. Can it be a part of the story? That's a difficult and hard conversation that only you're ever going to know the answer to between you and the DM. I don't encourage you to do this thing, but hey, if it makes for a compelling story that propels you to levels of R.A. Salvatore, by all means. But talking will get you more than walking away and huffing away. And as a player, you have to be willing to talk to your DM if you don't like something. And vice versa, just be willing to go back and forth. Like, presumably, we're spending time with our friends. Now, if it's a paid gig, like if you're going to start playing games or something and you don't like your DM, I don't know how that works out. Like, I'm on the surface. I haven't offered games yet because I'm not ready to do that just yet. But I wonder how you would handle that type of feedback. Some DMs have amazing feedback and some do not. Even some bigger YouTubers have said, hey, I'm going to get together a bunch of my friends. We're going to do all this, that, and everything. And the DM completely blew them off. Not because they knew who they were or anything, but the communication wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the big thing to have a fairly trouble-free experience is talk. Be willing to talk. Be open with what you want, what you expect. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to roll up the red carpet for you, but we'll be willing to negotiate. And I'm sure everybody can have a fun time if you're willing to give a little and get a little, but understand what your limits are, listen to what their limits are, and hopefully you can find a happy medium.
Well, yeah, exactly. Um, and like one of the last things I kind of wanted to touch on here, and you'd mentioned it, was like with like dealing with those themes. I want to have, my background. My character was assaulted when they were young. Okay, do you want this to be a major story point, or is this like, because that's a major thing that happened? Like, do you want, like, that's one of those things that it's like, okay, so you kind of have to, as from a GM perspective, you have to look at, okay, what is the rest of the table going to be okay with?
Yeah, because that comes into consent real strong. Because again, it's not like I expect you to give me a detailed, itemized list of every horrible thing that's ever happened
Yeah.
to you. Because
Yeah.
you could have this in your background, and you could be this awesome character of epic legend and destined to be the paladin of Tyr. But maybe the person sitting next to you has had a real life experience, and they don't want that in their fantasy every game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is this something that your character has already worked through? It is one of those things. Like, yes, it's working through something like that. Not easy. It's a continuous process. But like, is it something that your character is going to focus on during live play? Is, I
Yeah.
think, a better way to put that.
And it might be something like those are the type of backgrounds you. I just realized my wife did something really strange, and I wish I could show you. Long story short, I got the popcorn bucket for Alien Romulus, which is the alien head, and we
Okay.
have a little cowboy hat. And I just realized she put the cowboy hat on the alien. And it's kind of fucking throwing me off. Sorry, big huge serious topic, cowboy alien. Anyway, um, yeah, it's like that's a conversation, and that's a very real conversation to have. Again, that should come up during the consent thing, your session 0.
Yeah.
But always ask yourself, is this a story I want to tell? And again, it's your character, it's your story you're creating, but be cognizant of those around you. And one piece I'd like to give, it's going to sound contradictory to what I'm going to kind of get into. Be very mindful about using your D&D experience as therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us, I'm going to presume, are not licensed healthcare professionals, and it's okay to come out to this game and vent your frustrations as fucking Conan and kicking people's ass as John Wick or whatever you want to do. But don't bring your emotional problems to the table. And you actually kind of saw this play out personally with your person you knew who had the substance issue. Again, there's no problem with indulging and having a little bit of fun, but when it's clearly a problem, then it's a problem. And if you're using this game to work out emotional issues, or God forbid you're using this to explore your fetish, again, I'm not kink shaming you, but there are people who will pay you to do this. And please don't bring your tentacle porn into my Faerun. I'm just asking.
Hey, if somebody can use my, like, the way I look at that is, if somebody can use my game to surface level explore their interest in a fetish, and it doesn't disrupt my game, I'm
Yeah,
all for that.
Yeah, like I actually had a character. She played a sex worker again, and I know what we just talked about. And I was a shapeshifter, so I could maintain different faces around my town because I used it because I was a spy. I was an informant, and me being a person of the night, being a sex worker, that was my cover because it gave me access to places I couldn't get to.
Yeah.
And in my story, it came back to bite me in the ass. And that's not an indictment on sex workers or anything. Someone saw me shapeshift and they beat the crap out of me. Made sense, right? I ripped off the wrong thieves guild. Whoops. But yeah, like if you can use it to safely explore stuff, because like hell, I've seen multiple people talk about like why do male presenting people play women? Like I play a lot of women because I think they're cool. And then again, even now, like this summer, when I kind of discovered I'm sort of kind of on the bisexual thing, like I'm not into a sexual relationship, but could I be embracing of a loving male, like sort of you're my homie for life? I mean, that's who you are. And I know there's like a word for it, like a sexuality is a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
That's not a terrible thing. Like that's like, yo, you understand the importance of it. And if D&D helps you explore certain themes, again, within safety boundaries, within reasons, and with proper discussion, you can do that. And I think that's a really important thing for people to do, because as people grow up with these games, and hopefully you have good storytellers, you have a good time with your group, you may find out people, hell, the amount of people I've heard that have gotten married through people playing D&D, or how they've met their best friends or whatever. There are so many good people out there who will help you have a great time, and maybe you'll find out something about yourself. But again, if you're doing weird stuff, like I said, D&D Doge has really crazy stories about this stuff, and there are some people out there, man, that are weird. Those are the people you don't end up on a podcast like that. But if you can do it safely and with consent, by all means.
Yeah, like, and yeah, it's the big thing is, yeah, you need consent. You need you need to have the safety tools available. And I know there are a lot of people who complain, oh, safety tools are just for people, it's going to constrict the way I tell a story. No, no, it's
Really
not.
not.
It's
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
really not. If you want to have, like, if you absolutely must have slavery in your world, be it you're running Dark Sun or your homebrew world for whatever reason has that in it, and your players don't want to explore that or don't want that in their face, maybe don't mention it other than the fact that
It's
slavery
there.
does exist.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, in Star Wars, the Empire enslaved Kashyyyk. There are shit tons of Wookiee slaves. Chewbacca is a slave on the run. You wouldn't know that unless you knew the lore or you knew a little bit more than what the movies are telling you. All you ever hear, oh yeah, he owes me a life debt. That's all you ever hear. But if you knew it, you knew the Empire came the Kashyyyk, and any Wookiee who's a free Wookiee is considered a criminal.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that, or unless you watched Andor and saw how bad the Empire was treating its citizens prior to the destruction of the first Death Star, you wouldn't know that. So it exists in the world, but it's not in your face. But when you play a setting like your Dark Suns, kind of baked into it, or even like other settings like Eberron has stuff like that, I think. But or hell, even societies and other things like for D&D. I know the Drow are very males are very low in their society and the women are very high placed. And again, with the current political climate of whatever the hell we're going through, I could see somebody getting upset about that. But like, dude, it's been in the setting since like 50 years ago when Ed Greenwood wrote it. So
Yeah.
fuck off.
Um
But
and, and like when it comes to stuff like slavery, my opinion on having that in your world is, if you're going to have it, fine. But get, have a plan in place and something to allow your players to dismantle that system if
mhm.
they so choose. If your
Yeah,
player,
if they
if
want to be big damn heroes, let them be heroes.
yeah, if you're, no matter what your story is, the big overarching story you have planned, be damned. If during their adventures to be fucking heroes, they say, you know what? Slavery's wrong and we need to end this before we go and take out, Chungus the Death Lord or whatever you've named your
Yeah.
big bad evil guy. Um, and
Now here's a question for you because you just made me think about this. How do you deal with difficult themes in historical settings? For example, Call of Cthulhu takes a lot during the 1930s, and a certain percentage of the population was not treated very well.
yeah, um, that really comes down to a conversation with the group.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a lot of that and it sounds bad because it is, but there's a lot that you can off screen.
Yeah, because like I know there was one adventure, and I think it was the Call of Cthulhu 6th or 5th edition core rulebook, and it was called Dead Man's Trumpet, and it talked about a guy, a jazz musician, who thought he was gifted a trumpet by Louis Armstrong. Turns out it was like Narla Hotep in disguise. Big fucking surprise. And obviously this was a person of color who had it, but because of his position as a musician, he was treated very well. And again, it's not like it's no secret that H.P. Lovecraft was a notorious racist, but the mythos has kind of grown beyond that with like Eric, with like characters like Robert Bloch and August Derleth and all those other people who wrote and expanded upon the mythos, but it's still baked into the setting.
Yeah,
But you don't have to use it. Again, it's window dressing. You don't have to ignore it and say, oh, everything was all hunky dory and the sunshine and we all shared kind of water fountains. No, that's not true. But you don't have to glorify it, right?
yeah,
And again, as you mentioned, oh, they're going to restrict how I role play. No, You just have to adapt how you storytell. You have to adapt how you play, because at the end of the day, we all want to be heroes. Not everybody wants to be the fucking Joker or Carnage. We want to be Mal Reynolds. We want to be Luke Skywalker. We want to be Sturm Brightblade. We want to be these big heroes to make an impact. We don't want to be Darth fucking Vader or fucking Emperor Palpatine or fucking Lord Soth. We don't want to be terrible people. Because hell, this might be a conversation, Damien. How do you run the evil campaign without it running itself into the ground? Because I don't think it's possible. I don't. Anybody who's run an evil campaign, I think you're running on edgelord energy, and that high is going to run out real fast.
It is possible to have. I think it is possible to have at least like on the scale of maybe? Like I think an evil campaign could work going upwards of about a year.
Really?
Maybe
wow.
2 if you have the right group. But yeah, that's definitely something that we could talk about, because we're getting close to the end of our available time today. But yeah, honestly, I think I want to talk about that next.
I love how you make it sound like we're a therapist office. Well, that's just about a time. Do you wish to book more time? My secretary will be in charge of you when you leave by the front desk. Yeah, like we've got so many interesting topics to like just kind of browse upon. And I do thank everybody who's come over from my Blue Sky and my Discord and other places. So continue to support Damien. They do not suck.
Hello, I appreciate you.
And you know that's high praises. I've been saying that for 20 something years.
That is fair. But yeah, so since we are kind of wrapping up here, was there anything that you're working on that you can talk about that you would like to share?
As of this recording, I should have a pretty significant announcement coming up just after Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving. So look forward for that. That's all I can really say about that. I'll just say this. I've been sitting on this for a while. I'm really excited. Yeah, I don't want to get in too much trouble. Beyond that, I'm actually going to be hosting a convention at the University of Guelph. I want to say on the 25th of October. I'm going to be demoing Star Trek Adventures and Alien the RPG. I'm just trying to see if I got the date in my phone. I just need to make sure I got. Yeah, so that'll be on Saturday, October 25th at the University of Guelph. That'll be on the 4th floor from 11 a.m. until 10 p.m. Like I said, I'm going to run a couple of Star Trek adventure games, and I'm going to run Alien the RPG. And I think the Evolved Edition should be out by then. I have been in contact with Free League. I think I'm getting my press copies probably this week or next week. So hopefully I will have those in hand. I got the engineer bundle, so that'll be really cool. And beyond that, I'm recording a bunch of cool stuff on This Week in Geek. We just finished talking about the Resident Evil series of movies. We just finished we did Afterlife, Retribution, and the final chapter. We did the other 3. You should see that episode this week or next week. I'm also going to be recording our Halloween special, hopefully, with my good friend Enrique Couto, who runs the podcast Weekly Spookies and recent Horror Host Hall of Fame inductee, as well as my good friend James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd. We'll be talking about what makes Halloween special and some of our Halloween memories with that. And that'll be the Twig Holiday Special. And then finally, me, Alex, and Aaron will be talking about Dawn of the Dead, 1978, and the Zack Snyder, James Gunn, I think it was, a remake back in 2004 with some surprising thoughts on that. So look for that on thisweekingeek.net.
Nice. Yeah, I enjoyed the remake. It was fun.
I had a lot of fun with it. I think it gets a bad rap. I will say the first 10 minutes of that movie are fucking outstanding. And there's little bits of brilliance hidden throughout the entire thing. I really enjoy it. There's a fairly awesome 4K put out by Shout Factory. And I think it's getting re-released in December of this year. Definitely worth picking up. I think you can pre-order it now.
Nice. Alrighty. Well, everybody who stopped in to listen to us ramble on, I thank you very much. I would greatly appreciate it if you liked and or subscribed. Um, and I would definitely hope to see you come back next time.
Absolutely. I will be here each and every week that you're willing to put up with my erratic schedule.
Cheers.